I want to do now is talk a bit about what I want to try to cover, Shadow City and I are going to try to cover in the next 6 weeks. Can never quite tell how much I'll be able to cover because it depends on the sort of atmosphere and how I think it's going and what needs to happen. So, but I'll try and cover what we're going to do this 6 weeks, and then we'll finish again with a meditation. So we'll be finishing a little bit later at the seminar parts. So we'll be finishing between 9:30 and 9:45. So it might be a slightly late night, as it were. Okay, that was a joke. One would assume that 9:45 isn't so late, but anyway, obviously you're very, very early to bed. Okay. So I wanted to start with a little experience I had. So at the weekend I went back to visit my large, rumbustious family, who are lovely and very talkative. And I went the night before with Ria, who's my partner's youngest daughter. She's 9, and I said, we always have a discussion which DVD she should bring. So we had this discussion, and then she said, but the only thing I definitely want to watch The Voice. So I said, okay. So there I am, Saturday evening with a 9-year-old, waiting for The Voice to come on. Have you ever seen it? Anyway, I've never seen. I don't think I've seen it before. Anyway, Ria carefully explained to me why they weren't facing the person singing and so on, and press the jobby. Anyway, I won't go on into a critique of that programme, tempting though it is. But I don't usually sit and watch something like The Voice all the way through. I was very struck by there's 2 singers, weren't there, at the end, who were friends, very rather touching friendship between the 2 of them. And the last singer was, it's all been obviously hugely stage managed. The last singer was very, very good, beautiful voice, very moving voice. That's why it's called The Voice, you see. For those of you who are not following it, very moving voice. And they asked him something at the end, and he was saying something like, I can't completely remember, and it doesn't really warrant study, I don't think, but he was saying something like, I don't trust politicians anymore. I think that singing and music is what will help. Singing is expressing yourself, expressing exactly who you are, and I think that's how I don't trust politicians at the moment. I thought, and everybody cheered at that, and that's a very common feeling now. There's a common distrust of politicians, which I find itself rather dubious. I wouldn't like to have those kind of responsibilities. I'd find them extremely onerous, very, very difficult decisions that people are having to make. Anyway, that wasn't that so much I was thinking of, but what he said is, I want to trust my gut instinct. I think it was to do with, they choose a mentor, and he was saying, I want to trust my gut instinct. And I was very struck by this idea of a gut instinct. And I thought what he was saying was very typical of our age a little bit, in a sort of kind of microscopic way. I think to gloss it, he was saying, tell you what, I'm really unsure about things going on just now. And there's lots of words and lots of theories and lots of competing views. The only thing I can really rely on is what he called his gut instinct. And I think probably more and more people feel something like that. That the world is an extremely confusing, chaotic, divided place, and the only truth that you'll be able to find is in your gut instinct, as it were. And I thought there was something in this gut instinct that I sort of got interested in, trying to watch The Voice. And there's something in that. There is something about gut instinct. I sort of want to take my way into our subject for the 6 weeks around this. Because one thing you could say straight away is that Buddhism wants to say that your gut instinct is wrong. And it would say that your gut instinct is wrong in 3 different ways. And it's these 3 different ways I want to try to explore in the next 6 weeks. So Buddhism would say that the Buddha would say that your gut instinct, one of your deep gut instincts, is that even though you know it's can't be true, your gut instinct, if you're honest with yourself, is that things are permanent, that you are permanent, that other people die, yes, but they didn't organise things as well as you. If you're honest with yourself, you can't really think of yourself as not existing. Your instinct, your gut instinct, is that you're permanent and that things are permanent. Even with these massive changes going on in the world, something in us thinks, yes, but it's basically everything just will carry on pretty much as it has. One day it really won't. There's been lots of speculation about, is this the beginning of the end of capitalism, for instance? If it is, it's going to be a nightmare for all of us. And one day it will break, and there's quite a lot of discussion that's suggesting it's already beginning to break. But our gut instinct somehow is that things will pretty much carry on as they are. I will pretty much carry on as I am. The things that I've got will be permanent. Even though you sort of know that there can't be, one's gut instinct is that they are. So that's our first, I think, gut instinct, which is wrong, clearly wrong. But yet, that's how we live our lives, that things are permanent. I'm going to work just now, and I'll always be going to work. You have this idea that there are people called old people, but they're not you, and you're probably never going to be old in that old way. You're going to be like young old, which is kind of like you now, but like a bit older. So we have this idea, this basic gut instinct that my experience, who I am, is permanent, and that the world around us is effectively permanent. And you're surprised, I'm surprised, when it shows up that it's not permanent. Yeah. I was really struck though, this just recently, I read the London Review of Books. I'm not so much a reader as a believer in the London Review of Books. Fantastic things, what I always hoped journalism would be. And the woman, Jamie Diskey, was writing a journal. She's a wonderful writer. And she was, she's had very bad cancer. And she was writing a kind of cancer journal. And she's very aware of the cliche almost of writing that. So she writes it every however often about what it's like, the oncology doctor, how it was reflecting her reflections on it. And then they stopped. They stopped happening, these wonderful bits of writing that she did. And I was thinking, seems a bit odd. It's a shame that they've stopped. They've stopped. And of course, in the next issue, it was announced that she died. And I almost thought, well, you'd think she'd do a blog about it at least, I've now died, and it's actually, somewhere, even though she'd written about it in great detail, even then, I somehow thought, oh, well, that's great, it'd be interesting, let's carry on, So our first instinct, I think, is that we're permanent and that other people are permanent. And it always comes as a shock to us when we're not permanent and other people aren't permanent and the world isn't permanent. There's a sort of shock of disbelief. This is particularly when someone very close to you dies, and especially if that happens suddenly. You think it can't be like that, because your gut instinct is that it's not like that. But Buddhism would say that your gut instinct is wrong. Then the second way in which we have a gut instinct is that we think that ordinary life, our life here, especially in this very privileged West, is satisfactory. It's good, it's fine, it's pleasant even. And if it's not pleasant now, it soon will be. Yeah? We have this assumption that, it's a bit, it's not like really comfortable now, but it'll be comfortable when I've left this room because it's a bit warm, or it'll be comfortable when I get home. Or if you're on that bus and you think, this is uncomfortable, but it'll be fine when I get home, or fine when I get lunch, or fine when I get a date, or fine when I get that job, or fine when I get that car. We might not think that our present experience is satisfactory and pleasurable, but we have a gut instinct that it can be, should be, and will be. All we need to do is just organise it a bit. Bob's your uncle, decent lunch is fine, everything is just fine. Decent lunch, bit of a newspaper, sex, sleep, then it's fine, Sorry to mention sex. We've all done it. So that's our second instinct, is that, yeah, things might be a bit uncomfortable now, they're a bit warm in here just now, but once we're out of here, they'll be fine, it'll be great, and we'll be fine. And once we get home and have some cornflakes, have that moment of staring into the fridge last thing at night, trying to find that thing that makes life fine, that makes it just fine. So that's really a strong gut instinct. It's not what we think. If you were to do a sort of philosophy class on it, you might have to challenge that. But we're not talking at the level of what we think, what we believe, what we'd like to believe. We're talking about our gut instinct. And our gut instinct is that life can be fine, is fine, will be fine, should be fine. Buddhism says that gut instinct is wrong. Yeah? So in a way, that's a little bit of a deeper gut instinct than that first gut instinct that things are permanent, that I'm permanent. But the deepest gut instinct we have, it's the gut within our gut, so to speak, gut instinct is the right term for it, is that we think that we exist, that we are substantial, so that when I say I really am referring to something that exists from its own side, that's not contingent on other things. Yes, I know if I cut my nails, I don't sort of think, oh, well, I've lost a bit of myself, or when I don't weep every time I go to the hairdresser, although I do, but that's for different reasons. You look in the mirror and think, how did you get so old? Anyway, you don't weep when you lose your hair and so forth. I can't remember what I was talking about. But you basically think that, yes, things change a bit, sort of, but basically I'm a me, I'm the same. There's something substantial here. And you see that belief means that you're terribly frightened of losing it because it feels like all the world is me here. Yeah. So we have this instinct that when I say I and you, there really is a really existing I and a really existing you that's not to do with your age or your gender or your race or da-da-da, but there is something that's just essentially you, yeah, and that everything is somehow trying to manage that you, yeah, that I. You couldn't have a deeper instinct than this. It's our deepest gut instinct that I, when I say I, that's fine to say I because that really exists, yeah, and that my life is about making sure that I get what I want and I don't get what I don't want, and so my life becomes a kind of juggling between getting what I want, trying to get what I want with one hand, and trying to fend off what I don't want with another. Of course, it's very uncomfortable, but we do that because we really believe that there is an I in the first place. Yeah. In fact, we believe it so much that we don't see any cause to question that belief. Not only do we do that, but we think such things as the world exists from its own side. So here we have a shrine room, and you've come to the shrine room of the London Buddhist Centre on a Wednesday night, and it seems to really exist. There is a place called the shrine room in the west of the London Buddhist Centre. But we know, don't we, that there's just wood covering the floor, and this figure is made of something, and then we've got candles, and then we've got lights and curtains. When, if we started taking bits of that out, it took the rupa out, took the flowers away, and the candles away, and the curtains and the cushions and then the floor, when would it stop being the shrine room of the London Buddhist Centre? We sort of know that this place is a collection of parts, and yet somehow we don't know that. We think it is a really existent thing, and then we think those parts are really existent, that they exist from their own side, is a technical way of putting it. That the situation we're in is a really existing me, living in a really existing world with really existing time and space. And those are that's a gut instinct, our deepest gut instinct. Actually, any little tiny brush against philosophy, something like the philosophy of Schopenhauer, for instance, shows you that all of that is like deeply problematic. Like we know immediately that when I look at you just now, I'm seeing you all upside down in two different pictures at the back of my eye. My brain puts those two pictures up the right way round and puts them together so that I see you. That must be happening in time, It's not that my experience is that I'm in direct contact with you, and yet I can't be because of the nature of the brain and so on. The optic nerve, you can actually turn what's happening in the optic nerve into sound and hear what it's like. I can't possibly be in direct contact with you. Something's happening which must be happening in time, but I never have access to that time. So any slight looking at philosophy, whether it's Schopenhauer or anyone really, pretty much, starts to say that these gut instincts, that I'm permanent, that life can be satisfactory on its own level, that if I organise things right, if I get lunch, if I get a date, if I get a car, life is going to be just fine and I won't want anything else. And that we're trying to do that because there's a really existing me that wants life to be just fine for me, and that exists in a world that really exists. All of those are gut instincts, and Buddhism is saying they're wrong instincts. They really are very much our gut instinct, but they're not how things are. So in one way, Buddhism would want to say, the Buddha would want to say, no, your gut instincts are wrong. So I would just follow that for a little tiny bit more, and then I'll say a bit, then I'll contradict myself. So your gut instincts are wrong. So one of the things that says immediately is that if we're talking about your gut instinct, that's a massive thing to try and change. If we're trying to talk about your perception of things, your thoughts about things, your ideas about yourself, that's fairly doable. But we're not really talking about that level. We're talking about our gut instinct. So that's going to take a long time to change. The job of change, which I think is the meaning of life, is to understand those gut instincts and to see that they're wrong, to use that language, and to see through them into something beyond them, for me, is the meaning of life. But you can see that's a massive thing that we're trying to do. We're not just trying to change our cognitive functioning. We're not just trying to change, I was a bit wonky in that way. You're trying to get right the way down to the deepest gut instinct and see that is the construction, a fabrication. It's not how things really are, So what that means is that it creates two paths. This is my new way of thinking about it. I thought about this morning. So what I've been doing, usually when I talk about this, I've been talking, for those of you on the winter retreat, in terms of samadhi and prajna. I begin to start to feel that there's problems in that, which I might go into next week, slightly specialist. But I think it might be better to think that there's two paths that we need to embark upon, both of which are essential for human unfolding. So the first path is a path of love. So what love does is it makes us imagine others to such a degree that they become co-equal with ourselves. You start to live in a world of others that you really love and empathise. So their reality, their sense of themselves becomes more and more important to you. Our instinct is to get everything from me. So this path of love includes generosity, loving kindness. All of these are day-to-day things that we need to do if we want to discover more in our life. If we want our life to go somewhere, we need to discover this path of love. Nobody will care at the end of your life, I'm afraid, how much money you've got, how clever you were, how rationally sceptical you managed to be, how kind of jokey you were in a pub, how much you could get round people and charm them. Nobody will give a monkeys about all that. What people will remember about you is whether you are loving or not, kind or not, generous or not. Nothing else makes much difference. People can admire other things about you. They might admire your intelligence and your wit. They might be jealous of your bank account and your good looks. But what they'll respond to you most in you is your loving kindness, your generosity, and so on. So that's a whole path in itself. That's what makes your life matter. That's what makes my life matter, is to the degree to which I can love you, and this degree to which you can love me and each other. And that means just simply generosity, kindness, patience with each other, trying to understand each other. I was talking to a friend of mine today, and for the first time I thought, yes, I'm now really beginning to understand you. Yes, I can sort of see how you're perceiving that, and I can talk in such a way as to actually help. To help other people, you need to really understand them. You can't help people without understanding them, and sometimes we don't take the trouble to understand people before we try to help them. So you have that path of love, and that path of love includes what I've been calling samadhi, deep experiences of meditation, which are characterized by bliss, rapture, and so on. What I've been doing on the Saturday mornings, sort of slightly going along with it for 3 Saturday mornings, is trying to focus a bit more on that. So you've got this whole path of love, and that is mostly outside of meditation, but it includes meditation. Then you've got this other path of wisdom, which is reflecting on your experience, reflecting on what happens to happen to you, reflecting on other people, understanding yourself, understanding other people. And you need to be on both paths at the same time. You're trying to be on a path of love and a path of wisdom. Both of them, I think, are expressions of energy, but I might come back to that next week. What happens with these paths is as you progress along them, it's more and more difficult to tell which path you're on, whether this is love or wisdom. Eventually, they coalesce completely, and this is what this figure, the Buddha figure, represents. He's trying to embody in this image what it would be like if those path of love was perfected, if the path of wisdom was perfected, and like two spotlights shining into the sky when the light crosses over, and you get the two discs of light in the sky. That's what this figure represents. Love and wisdom completely unified. And the reason it needs to be like that is because we've got these 3 very primordial, very primal instincts, gut instincts, which we live our life upon and which are wrong. Yeah? So changing those instincts is a massive matter. It's the only, I think, genuinely serious thing in life. So that's one way of saying that our gut instinct, all the way back to the voice, our gut instinct is wrong. Yeah? Even our deepest gut instinct, that time exists, that space exists, that the world exists in the way we think it does, and a little tiny brush with science knows that the world can't be existing in the way you think it does, because the more you look at it, the more mysterious it becomes. But in another way, you could see that we have a gut instinct that is right. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any relationship to this figure on the shrine. What's odd is that we kind of, even if this is your first time here at the Buddhist Centre, we kind of know that there's something about the figure, if you tune into it, that reminds you of something. Like there's an instinct, a gut instinct, below even that deepest instinct. That there is a kind of truth that you can fathom through your gut, through your instinct, that there is something called love and wisdom and energy, and you can access it to some degree, and you even have a sense that it's going somewhere. So if you've ever, just found yourself being generous or kind, when you're genuinely generous and kind, rather than trying to be kind or trying to be generous, usually because it reflects on you in some way, if we're not careful, as Nietzsche said, our love of others is our bad love of ourselves. But when we're genuinely kind to others, generous to others, when you feel that, you feel like this is not just me being kind and generous in this moment, but this is the meaning of my life. This is the unfolding meaning of my life I'm in touch with now. You have there's an instinct in it, isn't there? Sometimes you see somebody being generous or kind, and you feel instinctively attracted to it. Attracted to it. You instinctively think, I want to be like that. There's something really valuable about that. So we also have an instinct, a gut instinct, for that path of wisdom, for that path of love. Even if it's just reading a novel, and the character is a character of love or of sanity even, or even of good sense, you can feel that yourself attracted to it. I've been rereading the novels of Penelope Fitzgerald, who I'd very much recommend you read. Very wonderful novelist. She published her first novel when she was 60, and so there's hope for us all. But my experience of rereading her novels is she's wonderfully wise. She has this incredible good sense. There's something very, very attractive about it, something very sane about it. And you feel, I'd like to be a bit more like this novel. I'd like to be a bit more like this. Have this kind of intelligence and detachment from things. Have this kind of wit. She's got this wonderful wit, which wit is often a kind of wisdom. So we also have a gut instinct for the truth of things and for love, yeah? So what we're going to be looking at in this course is trying to particularly follow these three instincts we have, which are wrong, that we think that life is permanent in some way, that we're permanent, things are permanent, and that we're surprised when they're not. So when we got to the tube last night and it was closed, you're surprised. Because you think, well, no, because people are even saying, but I need to get to work, but this is me, you see. You have that sense sometimes when you're jostled in the crowd, and all you need to do is think, but hang on, they're not jostling me, are they? I remember being pushed on the bus the other day, and I thought, I feel, why are people knocking into me? But they're not knocking into me, they're just knocking into someone. And that someone happens to be you. But it's not you, is it? They're not thinking, who shall I knock it? That one. They're not knocking into you, they're just knocking into someone. But you can't help but make it to do with me, Anyway, that's the third instinct, is that there is a me, and that people are knocking into me. They're not knocking into someone, they're knocking into me. It's fine if they're knocking into that, but they're knocking into me. What are people do knocking into? So we have these instincts that there's a me that people are knocking into, not a someone. That our life will be satisfactory once we get off this bus, once the tube's open, once we get to bed with someone or without someone, once we have a decent breakfast. Things will be satisfactory, and that things are some way permanent. Yeah. So the Buddha would say that those three instincts are your core instincts, and what we need to do is start to find ways of challenging them. Now, you can only usefully challenge them to the degree to which you're practicing these two paths. If you're not practicing this path of love, you won't be able to very usefully challenge those instincts, because your mind won't be flexible enough, it won't be rich enough, it won't be positive enough. You can't challenge those instincts from a sort of heady, dry, desiccated, intellectual, alienated, sophisticated point of view. You need to sort of, first of all, become much, much healthier, much more outgoing, much more courageous, much more loving, and so on. Yeah? So the Buddha would say, actually, let's not bother about those three things yet. Let's just get ourselves into a decent state of mind. Yeah. So you can't really challenge those instincts without practicing this path of love. But what I want to try and focus on a bit, on this seminar, is these three things. So this week and next week, I want to try to find ways of look at exploring impermanence, that things are impermanent, even though our instinct is that they're permanent. Yeah? So I want to try and find our way into starting to reflect on that, remembering that to valuably do that, we need to be on this path of love at the same time, one at the same time. It's not that one precedes the other. We need to do the both. Yeah. Then, on the third and the fourth week, I want to try to see if we can explore. This is where I actually haven't thought about this. I want to see if we can explore this instinct we have that things are satisfactory. Yeah. That we can make life work on its own level. Now, The Buddha isn't saying that things can't be satisfactory. He's actually saying they can be much, much more than that. They can be like this. You can't really say it, but they can be like this. They can be beyond your imagination of what your life can be. But no, on this ordinary level, in this ordinary human consciousness that we mostly live in, you cannot make it work. You cannot fix this life so that it's fine for you in the way that you think you can. You can in another way, but we'll explore that on week 3 and 4. But you can't do it in the way you think you can. However many people you sleep with, however many people you impress, however much money, however much whatever it is, you can't make life work on this level. It doesn't work. And the Buddha's not saying that to upset you or to sort of make you feel like, oh, I feel really miserable now, I felt great before. He's just saying, he's just sort of saying, it doesn't work, folks. Have a look. You know, he's not being ideological. He's just saying, well, if you don't believe me, look at your experience. Does it work? Are you completely happy all the time? So we'll try and explore that a little bit. I don't know how yet. In week 3 and 4, and then week, whatever it is, 4 and 5, 5 and 6 even, 5 and 6, we'll explore our instinctive belief that we exist, in a way the deepest possible gut instinct we have, which is that we exist from our own side, and that the world exists from its own side. And that is just true. Yeah? We'll try to see whether we can explore that. So what I want to do, I think, is I want to just suggest one thing you could do during your week to try and explore impermanence. And then we'll do a meditation to start to try and explore impermanence in meditation. But we'll come back to this next week. Yeah? So we'll just try and do little steps. And no way can we get very deeply into this yet. I just want to give you a kind of 6-week taster in all this. Don't think it's a matter of 6 weeks. It's not a matter of anything remotely like that. That would be to trivialise it. But we can start to explore it now, because we need to start now. Yeah. We'll just look. So I'll give you one way of doing it in your life and one way of doing it in meditation, and we'll carry on that next week. So what I'd like you to do this week in your day-to-day life, see if you can. There are times in your life where you will feel this week, like bored or worse than bored. You know, like I hate this. You know that moment. You know that moment when you think I really hate this, but here I am. It might be in that meeting that you have to go to. You sit there thinking, I can't, but you have to be there and smile and turn papers over. Something in your life that shows up to you as thinking, I tell you what, I really don't like this. Or something in your life that really shows up to you as this is lovely, this is great, this is fantastic, this is fabulous, yeah, whatever that is. I'll leave you to think what that might be. And what I'd like you to do is try to notice that moment, either a moment where, like the moment I had used with this recently was I was in A&E on a Friday night, and you know I didn't want to be there. It was very crowded. You don't know how long you're going to be there. You know, I was with a child. I was really concerned about the child. What was going to happen? I needed to be here. You know, I didn't know how. Friday night, we just walked past a drunk who was in handcuffs with quite choice language, which I was keen that Alex didn't learn. You know, there was blood. Somebody had collapsed on the floor. She actually really rather liked those bits. So she gets in there, there's blood on the floor. But I was a bit worried about those bits. And I was sitting there thinking, this feels really real. All this is happening, I feel uncomfortable. I'm a bit worried about Alex. I'm a bit worried about what's going on. Crumbs, how long are we going to be here? This is really, really real, and I really don't like it. So I really tried to think, let me just try and experience this really, really strongly, yeah? In my body, in my feelings, in my thoughts. And then what I try to do, in another situation, you bring it to mind. It feels really real. You feel trapped in time, trapped in experience. And then you just see what it's like when you just bring that to mind again in another situation. So you might bring it to mind in your meditation, for instance. Or you might bring it to mind just on your tube journey home. So you know that feeling on the tube journey there, you were really crushed and worried, and it really felt like it was going to go on forever. Now it's all finished and you're on your tube journey home. Or you're just lying down in bed going to go to sleep and you just bring it all to mind again. You don't need to think about it. If you can tune into it, you get this, and I don't know whether you'll get this, but you can get this sort of weird, slightly feeling that seems so real and was so real, and yet it's just not there now. It's just not there at all now. It only really works if it's something that really feels very real to you, very substantial, something you can, either that you really don't like or bored by, or something that you really like, and then bring it to mind in another situation, yeah? You know, an obvious thing might be, just before you go to bed, just sit up in your bed and just bring it right up to mind. None of it's happening anymore. The physical sense, the sights, the sounds, it's not there now. And see what that's like, yeah? It's best to try and do it in a sort of meditative way, so probably the best way is just to bring it into your meditation, just at the start. And then you try and go out and think, gosh, this now feels really real. And then you do it again, yeah? So see if you can do that in the week, at least once or twice, yeah? Let's say 3 times, let's say a bit more if you can. So especially when you're in a situation you don't like is a good one to use, because you really will feel that. Try and take a kind of psychic snapshot of it, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, how your body senses. And you try and keep that snapshot, and then you look at it later in a completely different set of circumstances. Yeah? You're not trying to think, impermanence. Don't do that. That's just an abstract idea. You're just trying to bring into one experience another, and see what happens. Yeah, nothing might happen. That's fine. Just try and do that. Okay, so let's now try and bring a little bit into meditation into that.